All right, guys, we are now live. It has been a few minutes since we have been back on Conversations with Commodores, but I'm so glad that we're here on October 22nd and we have got a superstar stud running back from the late 90s with us. We've got Jared McGrath out of Wyoming. Jared, thank you for being here tonight, bud. It's so good to see you.
Absolutely. It is great to be here. We've tried to do this a couple times and we had to cancel a couple times last minute, and I am thrilled we were finally able to link up.
I am as well because now that we're getting together tonight, we got some great stuff to talk about, not just in what went on with you in your past, but we can talk a little bit about the success of the team that's going forward. But we're going to save the current season for later. We're going to jump into 1994, 95, 96, growing up in Ocala, Florida. Tell
Right.
what was life like in Ocala in the mid 90s and talk a little bit about your sports journey as a youth.
It was great. I started playing football when I was 8 years old, like most of us. And I remember hearing Tyler's podcast, Unzerker from Central Florida, from Palatka. So he's only like 45, like an hour from me. So he and I probably had very similar experiences playing football and in the Ocala area, the Gainesville area, the Palatka area. And it was great. Lots of competition. I played against Dante Culpepper. Kenny Clark and Dante Culpepper were the kind of the two receiver quarterback duo. Went to Vanguard High School, so y'all know Dante Culpepper had an amazing career in college and pros. So I got to play against him. I actually got to sack him one time as a true freshman playing. So it was great experience playing ball in Florida.
Nice, nice. We already got some Commodores in the house. The Juice, OJ Fleming says to tell
All
you.
right, OJ. Yeah.
OJ is a diehard conversations follower and great contributor to our group. And I know his son is having an outstanding high school season right now. And OJ, I want you to keep us updated how he's progressing.
Please
Uh,
do.
Jared, was football always your sport, or were you a multi-sport or sport of the season kind of a guy growing up?
Yep, I was a four sport guy in high school. I played baseball, football, track, and weightlifting. Those are my four sports. I actually wanted to do wrestling. I have a stud wrestler as a 17-year-old son right now. He's a stud here in the state of Wyoming. I live
Nice.
I live in Jackson, the Jackson area, just south of Jackson Hole, and he's a stud wrestler. And I went out for the wrestling team, and the coach said, "Yeah, I can make you a state champion real fast because I benched over 400 pounds as a senior."
Wow.
And my dad came and grabbed me by the ear and pulled me off the mat and said, "You're never going to wrestle again because you're going to get hurt." Well, make a long story short, I got hurt playing baseball, and I had lots of offers as a junior to play baseball,
Mm-hmm.
Division I baseball, and I tore my thumb. I was diving for a catch in the outfield and got a gamekeeper's thumb and
Ooh.
tore a ligament in my thumb. So I was out my junior year for baseball, which put me out. So I ran track to work on my speed for my senior year for
Mm-hmm.
football. And that actually ended up being one of the greatest blessings because I increased my speed tremendously between my junior and senior year.
Wow. Wow. Oh, out of Carolina, we got JB. John Bradley says to tell you hello, Jack.
Yeah, I got this talk to JB a few months back. So JB, welcome, brother. Love you.
Yeah, JB's been on, and I hope he's doing well.
Yep.
Oh, coming out of Hawaii. Who we got coming out of Hawaii? Paul Morgan says to tell you hello.
Morgan, yes, that man threw some amazing blocks for me back in the day,
He
and
did.
scored some scored some.
Fella, a fellow Mississippi, or not fellow Mississippian, but
Yep.
I know that Paul's out of Mississippi. But Jared, when was it that kind of percolated with you and your dad, your family, that football is going to end up being what you're going to play once you left high school?
Yeah, once the baseball thing kind of got hurt as a junior, I had an amazing senior year of football. I set all the school records, county records. I was number two runner up, Mr. Football Florida.
Wow.
Travis Henry, who went to Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
he beat me. He was the number one guy, and I was number two. So I had an amazing year. My senior year, my jersey was retired as a for in high school, and so it just became a decision at that point. I had lots of offers, and I chose Vandy. I
Mhm.
chose to go play for Vanderbilt. And it
But
was,
coming out of Central Florida, Vanderbilt's not necessarily always recruited much in mid-state. Now we've had guys all over the state,
yeah,
but why not one of the in-state programs? Why not UCF? Why not go south to Miami as
yeah.
opposed to where you ended up?
They recruited me. They offered me scholarships. So when I first left, my dad was a Gator, so he played for the Florida Gators,
Hmm.
and I was leaning towards wanting to go to Florida. They had 8 running backs on scholarship
Hmm.
at the time. Fred Taylor was only a sophomore.
Wow.
So it was one of those things. Am I going to go to Florida and compete with 8 backs, or am I going to go play in the? I only wanted to play in the SEC. I mean, I did official visits outside the SEC, but
Hmm.
I only wanted to go in the SEC. Um, so that's why I stayed close to home.
No, I get that. And I got to pause for just a second because I want to know what's so funny, OJ, between you and Paul about me saying percolate. What's so funny about that? um, so when did you first get up to Vanderbilt and take a recruit visit? When did you get an impression of the school and the campus?
Yeah, I went up there for my official visit. Woody Woodenhofer. There was a lot of energy. I could feel it building because it was Woody's first year as the head coach. It was Woody Ball. That was what was the name, the slogan of the year, 97 was Woody Ball. He had just taken over, and I went up on my official visit, and I felt something special when I was up there. I met some great guys.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and getting to know, through over the fall, Jimmy Williams and Tyler, local guy that was
Mhm.
going up to Vandy, and I met Ryan Alds. He was there.
Mhm.
Jamie Winborn for sure. Greg Zolman was there. We had lots of great recruits, and I think it was an amazing recruiting class. Actually, the class of '97 was a stud class.
It sure was. There were a lot of athletes who contributed, not just on Saturdays for the black and gold, but
Yep.
also on Sundays
Yep.
later on. Um, do you remember? Now you graduated in 2000 or 2001,
Yep.
so the statute of limitations
Hmm.
it's expired. You're good.
Yep.
Whatever you want to share is just with us tonight.
Yep.
Jared, I can't say that it won't get out into the ether world, but JB said that it was the great host on your recruiting visit is really what pushed you over the edge to make that decision to come to campus.
That was one of my next points before we started pivoting. Is I had a great host named John Bradley. So JB hosted me and he showed me around campus, and he was an amazing host, and I felt the energy too of what that was, and just getting to know him and all the upperclassmen. Remember, we had an amazing defense. My freshman year, we had the number 6 defense in the country.
Yeah, you know,
We had
there
some
were some
amazing guys,
superstars on that team.
superstars on that team, on that defense. If we
Mhm.
could get the offense going, I think we would have had a better chance of having some wins, but we were just getting the offense going, but the defense was our anchor that year.
Yeah. And I think that's been the history of the program, frankly.
Yeah.
One year we'll have a stud offense and a weak defense, or vice versa. We rarely have those years where they're both in sync and having big years. But oh, we got Billy Smith, one of the beloved Keystone
Yep.
Cops, says to tell you hello.
Hey there, Billy. Yep, for sure. I remember one thing that happened. I tell you, when I came in as a true freshman, John, when I started in preseason, I remember getting the ball one time. It was first offense versus scout team defense, and I had gotten the ball one of my first handoffs in scrimmage play, and I went around the corner and I hit a safety who was a walk on, and I basically ran up, trucked him,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, oh yeah, freshman. Well, Jamie Duncan did not take kindly to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes sprinting off the sideline and clotheslined me. Said, "How do you like that, freshman?" And
Wow.
just yeah, we just started brawling a little bit and getting after it. And so that was the type of defense we had. That's the type of leader Jamie Duncan was,
Well,
right? For our team
yeah.
inside the locker room. And there's other great leaders too that we had. Corey Chavis was one of them. And That's and then John Bradley pulled me aside in the locker room. I remember him saying, "Hey man, nothing. You got to get some thick skin." So,
Yeah.
he
Was Shelton, was Quarles part of that team as
he
well?
was. Yep,
Yeah.
he
Oh man.
was.
Well, that you just answered my next question was you're welcome to the SEC moment was Jamie Duncan saying hello to you.
Saying hello, and it was a definitely a different type of hit. He put me right on my back. Yeah.
Oh, hey, we got Russ Nicolas with us. Hey, Russ.
Russ. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Russ. That's right.
What was it, Jared, about the transition out of high school, out of Ocala, and coming up to Nashville and the SEC, and now you're in college? When did you feel you got your footing? When did you feel like, academically, athletically, socially, all of this is coming together and it's not as much of a daily stressor, if you will? And it could have been day one or it may have been after you graduate. I don't know. Everybody kind of finds theirs at a different pace.
I felt like I started to find my own my junior year. I went
Mm-hmm.
through a lot of opposition. I had a lot of challenges. My after my freshman year, I think that I just didn't know what I didn't know as a true freshman. I came out and just I think I had a good freshman year. I ended up starting as a true freshman. The fourth game into the season, I took the starting job. Guys like Paul Morgan were on the offense for, they've been there for a long time and they were supportive. They're super supportive of some of the transitions that we had with Jimmy Williams and myself coming in. Jimmy then went to defense, but and I think one of the most difficult things that ever happened to me, honestly, as a young Commodore was being a team captain as a sophomore. I didn't realize that, how challenging that was for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I've never said that actually to anybody. I told Zolman that, a few months back we were talking,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a challenge to be a team captain. I think that it was one of those things where I don't know if I was actually voted team captain or I was anointed team captain, but it presented a lot of challenges for me. And I didn't know how to take that pressure, especially from the upperclassmen. And I had a crappy sophomore year. Like that
Mm-hmm.
sophomore slump hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Had an injury early on, and then Rodney Williams took over and he did awesome for like four straight games. He had I think 3 or 4 100-yard games in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the bench, and a lot of opposition, and I didn't know how to handle that. So it was a lot of growth for me in my sophomore year.
I was going to say, it's already enough pressure to get playing time. It's already then to be a starter as a young player, a freshman or a sophomore. But then to
Yeah.
be appointed one of the captains
Yeah.
and all the responsibilities which come with that and the expectations by not only your team but your coaching staff, but even probably more so yourself. You probably put a lot of pressure on yourself to step into that role. Did you find at some point that it was just overwhelming, or did you just roll with the punches the best you could and just got through that season because you dealt with the injuries?
Yeah, you know what? I think all of us athletes, everyone that wore the black and gold, I think we all have high expectations of ourselves for
Oh, sure.
performance, whether it's in the weight room or in the practice or in game day. We all want to succeed. We all want to play. We all want to have amazing careers and amazing seasons. And for me, it was the opposition, like you're talking about. That's what it was for me. That's when I stepped in. Finally, my junior year, I was like, "Oh crap, that's over." It's time to move on and battle. And I had a playing time battle with Rodney. He was a great running back,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually I learned a lot of life lessons from that time.
It's so it's I always find these conversations fascinating because no matter when we played, what position we played, or our backgrounds, we all have similar experiences to a certain degree of just being athletes trying to compete at the highest level in college. And whether you had little playing time like myself or a ton of playing time like you, those internal struggles, those internal things
Mhm.
that we deal with, everybody deals with it because if you don't, then you're just sleepwalking through life and you just don't care.
Yeah,
But I can so relate to a lot of what you're sharing. And I don't want to jump ahead because I know you deal with that now professionally.
I
But
do.
I do want to ask did that starting to set the tone now that you look back? Did that set the tone or a path for you professionally that back then you may not have appreciated, but now that you look back, it's kind of some of the foundations that you're able to reflect upon now.
It did. It absolutely set the path and the tone for me.
Mhm.
Choosing Vanderbilt over some of the other schools, I think I look back and say, man, what a bold move that was for me, to choose Vanderbilt other than some of the other schools that were closer to home, like go to Florida or South Carolina.
Mhm.
Clemson offered me, Miami wanted me to come to Miami. LSU offered me, and I stayed and I went to Vanderbilt. A program that hadn't had a winning season in quite some time. But
Mhm.
I believed in Woody. I believed in the team. I believed in, the players that I met on my visit. And it really started to shape the rest of my life. Doors opened because of Vanderbilt. And so for the young players that do listen to this, if the younger players do watch this,
Mhm.
um, y- you know, Vanderbilt's a special place. We all have a special place in our hearts. There's a lot of great people, and it will open doors. So just keep battling, keep going through it. Don't give up. Keep fighting the good fight, but it will shape you and create lots of great momentum for life if you allow it to happen.
I want to, and it's so well stated. Thank you, Jared, for saying that. And the younger generation, I don't know if they'll ever see these, but these are the lessons. That's why we tell these stories,
Yeah.
and that's why we're telling the oral history of the program. Did you at any point during that sophomore year entertain discussions either internally or externally with family about transferring, about leaving Vanderbilt?
Yep, I did actually, and I didn't share this with any of my teammates at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I was really frustrated, um, just with what went down my sophomore year. I was really at myself, at how I let the team down, how I let myself down, how I hadn't performed like I wanted to, how I had an injury and wasn't able to come back and lost the starting job. That was tough. That was a big ego blow actually for me, a big ego blow, um, for what I wanted to do. And so actually I went into Woody's office after my sophomore year and I said, Woody, I want to transfer. And this
Mm-hmm.
was in the days the coach had to sign your transfer paper.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like now you can just go transfer you want. You just put your name in the transfer portal and you can leave campus and not have to see any.
You just put it on Twitter or X, and
It's
it is.
it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I did. I sat down with Woody and I said, I want to transfer. I've had a rough go here. I said, this has been tough. And he said, don't run from it. He said, learn from it. That's what he told me. He
Hmm.
said, don't run from it, learn from it. He said, I'll ultimately do what you want me to do, but I don't know that transferring is the right thing for you. And so that's what he told me. Um, and he said, we'll make it right, whatever it is. We want you to stay, you're have a future here. Um, but I was going to transfer and leave. Yeah.
Is that one of those pivotal days that you reflect on in your life that made that an impression on you that kind of kept you to where put you on your path or kept you on your path?
You never know what the daisy chain or the domino effect is of
Yeah,
decisions. I
yeah.
mean, I can kind of probably play it out,
Hmm.
if I wanted to trace it out, but there's no need to do that because I stayed.
Yeah,
And I loved my experience, and I ended up,
yeah,
fifth in the rushing record history for Vanderbilt.
yeah.
Had a good juniors, came back and had a decent junior year and a decent senior year.
Mhm.
So for me, it ended up working out. I learned from it. I didn't run from it. I didn't run. I learned, and that's what's important.
That's some maturity because it'd be very easy for you to contact some of those other schools and say, "Hey, I got a couple of years left. I'm ready to scoot." But it's that 18 to 22 year time period for guys that we go from being knuckleheads to
Yeah.
hopefully somewhat maturing young men. I wouldn't say we're fully matured because, gosh, you're only 22 or 23 by the time you leave college for most folks, and there's still a lot of a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you stayed the course and you were pleased with that. Um, Going into your junior and your senior years, were you looking forward to the seasons and competing, or was it becoming a chore of some?
No, I love football. I mean, it was my job. I saw it as my job when I was at Vanderbilt. I had my scholarship endowed, so it was taken care of by a booster, and I felt like I owed it to the program to give it my best, you know. And I also wanted to try to play on Sundays.
Mhm.
I feel like I had enough athleticism and enough skill. I probably would not have been an everyday down back or a household name on Sundays, but if I could have played on special teams and third down back situation, maybe did some defensive work as well,
Mhm.
I thought I had some talent to be able to do that. And so I felt like staying the course at Vanderbilt, um, finishing up my career there was the right move. And I did. And I ended up signing with San Francisco. And I had a devastating knee injury at the worst time of my career. I played in all 44 of my 44 college football games. Every
Mhm.
single game I played in is at Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
I think I started 30 or so games. But um, that's why I stayed. I wanted to stay the course and see if I could make it to Sunday. And I signed the contract. So Jamie and I went to San Francisco together.
Oh, I didn't appreciate that was the same
Yeah.
year. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I want to talk about leadership. I want to talk about culture and what it was like at McGugan during your years. Not all of us have success all 4 years. There may be 1 or 2 years where there's more wins
Mhm.
versus losses. But a lot of us, particularly in my era in the 80s and into the 90s a little bit, we didn't have much success. 1, 2, 3 wins. And of course, as athletes, we have a lot of pride. We we're confident in our abilities, but that wears on you after a while and it can impact leadership. It can impact culture. Share a little bit about your experience because I know you had some outstanding on the field teammates,
Mhm.
but men who were even better off the field as leaders and friends. So share a little bit about some of those experiences.
Yeah, I've grown to love my years at Vanderbilt. And I'll just when I left Vanderbilt, I don't know if this rings true with anybody else, but I'll speak my own mind on this. I had some frustration with Vanderbilt when I left. I felt like we underachieved, we underperformed. I looked at some of the other teams that were playing on Saturdays in prime time, and I'd watch them play and how gelled they were as a team and unified. And I felt like at least that was the picture that I saw. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like we weren't quite as close in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like, we had 2 wins one year, we had 3 wins another year, and had 5 wins 2 years in a row, where we
Mm-hmm.
almost went to a bowl game, which was the
Mm-hmm.
big deal for us.
Yeah.
And like I just felt like we weren't gelled. And especially when I went to San Francisco, I saw the chemistry in the locker room. I saw the teammates, how they interacted together. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, man, we didn't have that. Like I really wanted to. And that's partly my fault. I was a major contributor on the field, team captain early on, and it never clicked for me. I wish that we would have. And I look back at all the guys. I love all my teammates. I mean, if they called me today and they said, Jared, I need help or I need something, I would be on a plane this second,
Mm-hmm.
to be there with them. I just do.
During your time, you played for Coach Woody,
Yep.
and he came from the professional ranks and had all that success with the Steelers. Did you find that he ran the program or expected the members of the team to be more professional like he was used to coaching these older players, or was he hands off? And I'm not placing blame on why you felt the culture was that way, but I'm just curious because my coach, Coach Watson Brown, was a college coach, and he treated us like collegiate players. So I'm just curious about the way Coach Woody was.
Yeah. Yeah. Woody was more of a professional players coach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Good feelings, come open door policy, come talk to me. I'll work it out on the sideline. He was never really in your face too much. He
Mm-hmm.
expects us to show up as professionals, as athletes on time, be where we needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, look at the coaches he brought in with him, all had NFL experience.
Yeah.
Coach
Yeah.
Harrison, right? Defensive coordinators. Woody was a defensive genius.
Yeah.
Um, but Steve Crosby,
Mm-hmm.
he's a West Coast offense, totally different than Ed Lambert's offense. He was my first coordinator, and then we switched to Crosby my sophomore year. So yeah, he brought in professional coaches from the NFL, and it led to more of that professional environment, more of a hands off environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I loved my time with Woody. and the coaches and the players. It was a great time. I love those guys.
And a lot of your teammates have echoed those same sentiments. Not
Yeah,
everybody, but a
yeah,
lot of them have echoed how much they enjoyed playing for Woody and what he brought as a
yeah.
coach to the team and how he treated the players. I want to talk about campus life for a little bit. A lot of us had the experience that it was not an advantage to show that you played football on campus. Some didn't care, some relished it, but what was your I guess what was your experience with professors, with other students in classes or on campus? How did they treat you, or how did you feel when folks were around you who were just, I'm going to call them the common the common student body around you?
I got to share a story about Jimmy Williams. I love him. You know, sad for him not to be with us, at this time. He's such a young loss of life with his cancer. But, uh, you know, my first class was English 100.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy was in that class. There was five of us, five freshmen in that class. And it was the 7:10, no, the 8:10 a.m. start class, the very first class.
Yeah.
So we were obviously in 2 days and training. We had season started
Mm-hmm.
and season starts. We have our first game, and then then classes are starting at the same time. And I remember sitting in class, and Jimmy was such a clown, but yet he loved him. And he stood up one morning, and we were sitting there, and he goes, "Watch this, guys." He goes in, walks to the front of the classroom. There's 20 of us in the classroom, opens up his backpack, pulls out an apple, shines it on a shirt, and sits it on the on the professor's desk. Walks back to his seat and sits down, sits back with that big grin on his face. And
Mm-hmm.
the professors looked at him. We all start cracking up laughing. It was a female professor. And she says, "You think that's going to get you a pie in this class?" And he goes, "Heck yeah, it is." She says, "I think you're right. Good move." So that was my first experience with the professor at Vanderbilt. And not all classes were like that. There were some professors that were super strict and really hard and did not care whether you were an athlete or not. They didn't give you any special attention or special favors on anything. But that was my first class experience with five athletes and Jimmy polishing an apple and putting it on the professor's desk.
Oh, that's so classic. That's such a good story to
Yeah.
share. Yeah. What was the thing you enjoyed the most about being representing our school during your years that you were playing and in school? Was it the fact you were on the team and representing the school? Was it just the fact that maybe from home folks were proud of you because you were at Vanderbilt? Was there one particular thing that really got your attention or that made you just really feel good about the fact that you were doing what you were doing?
Yeah, I really realized what it was like to be a college athlete during media days, during
Mm-hmm.
fan days.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the fans would come out and we would be on the field and doing fan pictures, I am in awe of the fan base at Vanderbilt, how they support. I know it's been criticized. Oh, they're fair weather fans. They show up late sometimes, but I'll tell you, man, those fans came out, and some of the fans I got to know, and the letters I started getting in my locker from the fans and from these young kids, it was inspiring for me to
Mm-hmm.
be better and do better. Um, and then I my sophomore year, after I had a really good freshman year, going into media days, a young couple walked up and handed me a baby and said, "We want to introduce you to this baby. His name is Jared. We named him after you."
No.
Yeah. And so I was like, so I have pictures still in, my college box. I have a box stored away of photos, and there's this kid, and they sent me a picture and they said his name and named him after me. And I had two kids actually named
How
after
cool.
two
Now
babies.
we
And I
need to
held
know
them.
where those kids are now. Are they
Yeah,
maybe
I can dig them out. I've got the
yeah.
photos. I've got the
Oh,
photos
how
with the
cool.
names.
How cool.
I should do that. And so I realize that, I realize the impact that we have as athletes,
Mhm.
and we're young. I mean, we're 18, 19, 20 years old. Half the
Mhm.
time we're doing stupid stuff. But
Mhm.
boy, we have impact with young kids and
Yeah.
families. We just do.
Well, Tyler says he's never had children fans of the program named after him. He wants you to share more about the stupid stuff. that
The
y'all
stupid stuff.
into.
Well, for that, Greg, I don't think Greg might not be on here, but if I see anything, I told Greg, I was texting with him earlier, Greg Zolman. I said, I've got a story to tell about you. And he's like, please don't embarrass me. I said, I won't. But yeah, there's a lot of stupid knucklehead stuff that we do as young athletes, practical jokes and pranks and putting stuff in each other's lockers. And, that's part of it. That's part of who we are in building the locker room.
It
Um,
it is, and it's the foundation of friendships that we keep for the rest of our lives.
it
And
is.
and I've told this many times on here that I have a group text with all of my guys, and we have a group name to it. And I assume you have a group text, maybe with Zolman and Tyler, maybe some others. I want to know what the name of the group text is.
It started out years ago as crummy doors because we never made 15, but that was the title of the group text was what the group was the crummy doors. And then we switched that to the pro doors. So
Nice.
yeah. So yeah, we make fun of each other a lot and we have a lot of fun and I miss catching up with, so those of you guys that are on here, I've missed catching up with with a lot of you, Tyler being a Central Florida guy. I tell you what, when I graduated and I left, I just immersed myself into my career.
Mhm.
I moved back to Florida. I moved to the West Coast, and I just kind of lost touch. I didn't have Facebook actually until about a year ago.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, it's been a year since I've been on Facebook. So I just lost touch with a lot of people. And when I came on Facebook, I've had a lot of messages saying, "Where have you been? We have missed talking to you. We've missed you." One of those was John Bradley actually on here who reached out, and so yeah, I regret actually kind of just moving away and moving into my life and getting life going and not staying super connected with my teammates. If I could do that over again, I would.
Well, is now the time to share that open invitation that any Commodore, regardless of year or generation, has a bed they can stay in your Wyoming spread. And I've seen pictures of it, guys. It's fantastic. So I'm inviting everybody on behalf of Jared to come out and stay with him.
Please, I can sleep 30 people here if I wanted to. So I have a ranch in Wyoming.
Let's go. Let's go.
It's amazing.
Harold Lurch says calls you a Florida boy, and
Lurch, yeah.
Tyler wants you to tell the story when you all are on your recruiting visit and you learn that Dowhauer got fired.
Oh my gosh. They told us in the one of the meet, they pulled us all aside and said, yeah, so we have a transition. Dahar was fired. And they found out honestly, I wasn't that connected to Dowhauer that much, but I got to meet Woody, and that's where it solidified for me. And I was like, oh crap, what's going on here? This isn't going to go well. I'm on a recruiting visit, and the head coach gets fired, but Woody was named head coach, and that's what it was. So I don't know if Tyler had a different experience of that, or if he was in a different room. I don't remember. Actually, we were on the same recruiting visit, so I don't know if they told us all together or individually. I don't recall that part of it, but it
Yeah,
was.
Tyler has told his version on here, but he wanted to hear your perspective
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as well. Jared, we got so many topics that we could go into,
Yep,
but I want to talk about the transition from post football into after the 49ers
yep.
because a lot of guys have shared, and we've had some panel discussions that you were, I think, maybe part of, where we talk about that transition away from the sport and how hard that is for some. What was it like for you, that transition?
Yeah, it was tough, man. Leaving the game behind. I actually went and played competitive flag football because I had to keep it going, and we had a great team. It was tough. I mean, I missed my friends. I missed the structure of what school was and what the team provided. I missed the locker room. I missed my friends. I missed all that. So for me, I moved west, and so I started a career after San Francisco and in medical devices. And I moved to San Francisco, back to San Francisco, and I was a super lonely time. Nobody knew me. I was out on the West Coast, just starting my career, and I just kind of left everything behind and just said, time to start over." it was a tough transition. I help people with that now, with athletes now. It's probably wouldn't go into that later, but that's part of what I do. And it was a really lonely, vulnerable time for some.
Well, what pulled you through? I'm going to call it a funk. That's my
Yeah,
term, not yours.
yeah,
But
yeah.
what was it that allowed you to transition out of that into what was the next phase for you of life?
Yeah, I kept playing sports. That's what it was. I kept playing competitive sports. I played in a baseball league, and then I played in a competitive flag league.
Mhm.
And for me, that's what just kept it going. I look forward to those flag games every single twice a week. It was amazing. Um, yeah, and then eventually the body starts breaking down, and then
Mhm.
family starts stuff getting in the way and travel, and then I became an executive, and then so I ended up having to transition my from competitive stuff to like team stuff in the business world. So I ran lots of teams in the business world, and then that's where I started finding my competitiveness there too.
Now, I don't know if it's a state law in Wyoming. You're about 10 years younger than me, but in most of the country, when you get to be closer to our ages, you have to find your way to a pickleball court. Have you found your way to a pickleball court at this point?
Can I show you?
Yeah.
All right, I will show you. So
Yeah,
you
there
are
was a reason
looking.
why I asked.
Is
Look,
there okay?
guys,
You are
look at the
looking
background.
at
There
my
you go.
pickleball court right there, right there in my backyard. I have a pickleball court right there. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
my ranch.
keep
Okay.
spanning around. I want folks
Uh,
to see
okay.
this beautiful sight.
Yeah.
That's the backyard, guys. That's
Yeah.
Jared's backyard.
Yeah. That's my backyard. That's where we shoot elk up in those mountains right there, right behind my house. So
Awesome. Awesome. Oh,
yeah.
Fonzo Harvey says to tell you hello, and he says
Oh, awesome.
he will never forget your Florida games.
Yeah, I had a little chip on my shoulder during the Florida games. That was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, and there was, just going back home and going to Florida. There was a lot of energy there for me. I had to prove a lot of people wrong.
Mhm.
I had a chip on my shoulder, and yeah, Florida was all. I love going to Florida and playing Florida, but my dad's alma mater, so I had a little
Well, I was
extra
going to
there.
say, and how many tickets did you have to secure for each of those games?
About 2025.
I
Yeah,
was going to say you were beg, borrowing, and stealing from everybody for those
I,
tickets.
I was. Yep.
Well, Jared, let's talk a little bit about your career now
Huh?
and how your experiences have helped shape the way you help athletes these days. Share a little bit about that experience, that journey.
Yeah, so like I said, I went into medical devices and just started climbing the ranks, started with a company called Stryker, in the West Coast. And then I just developed my career and became an executive in the medical device world really quickly.
Mhm.
Had lots of success, lots of big wins. I started investing in some companies in their stock and had some big home runs. So I started to look at about age 33.
Mhm.
um, I lived in Arizona at the time, and I said, what can I do with my life that makes sense? I wanted to have a meaningful impact
Mhm.
on others. Like my personal beliefs, my religious beliefs is I just don't sit here and hoard things to myself or do things for me. It's for there's a higher purpose and a higher power.
Mhm.
And that for me, that's really important. And
Mhm.
so I sat back and said, what can I do? So I decided to go into the helping profession and transition completely out of the executive world. Retired for about 2 or 3 years. And then I went and got a master's degree in psychology. And I finished up my degree with a doctorate. So I had my doctorate. I have a doctorate of psychology, and and part of the niche market that I went into and my degree was in sports performance psychology. So I worked with tons of athletes
Mhm.
uh, on sports performance and anxiety and just moving through transitions in life. And so I went into that world for a little while, for a number of years. And so that's kind of where I wanted to give back, was in that. So I started working with families, and I started working in family systems. I started working with the wives of athletes, and then the athletes themselves. And I started working with coaches, and so I really blossomed into a pretty robust career in the helping profession with athletes in particular. And then, yeah, so that was the next phase of my life. I've been through several iterations of what I do professionally, but that was one of them.
You know, there's no greater to me, there's no
Yeah.
greater purpose in life than to give back.
Yep.
And I applaud that mindset and your life's not philosophy per se, but just the way you live and lead your life. And for you having walked that walk previously, you know where folks are coming from. And it would be different that if you were just an academic guy and just got all the education in the world, but you'd never played, if you'd never put on those cleats and been in that locker room and had the highs and the lows of an athlete. I just think that's just so special what you're doing to help so many folks. So thank you for continuing to share your journey and to share your experiences with folks. It's invaluable. Are you finding your field more and more crowded these days as opposed to when you got started many years ago?
We had a test run in college. Um, I think his name was Jeff. I can't remember the sports psychologist's name. Actually, I was friends with him on Facebook last year, and I don't know where he went to, but he helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We went to play golf together a few times. And like he was an amazing help for me to move through as my junior year to some of the stuff I was through. That's what actually I remembered that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is mindset. So I do tons of mindset work um, with what I do now. And he really shifted my mind. I didn't know that's what he was doing, but it was shifting my mindset on how I approach things and problems or challenges and obstacles in life. And that's what I try to do now is give back in that way. And the field is crowded, maybe, but a lot of them aren't athletes. That's the thing.
Well,
So
that's what I was going to say. How do you have how is when an athlete meets with another athlete, you just know there's got to be, now not all personalities
yeah,
mesh. I get that just because you played a sport. I get that. But from a credibility standpoint, if I'm looking at a pure academic person versus somebody who's been in the battles, been in the wars, I know where I'm choosing 100% of the time. I don't know if that's if it always plays out that way in your world, but I would have to think that more often than not it does.
yeah, that's the first question. It
Yeah.
is. It's like in the movies, right? You see the questions, you see these like support groups of these psychologists leading these like veteran PTSD groups, and these they've never been to war. It's like they've
Right.
never put on the armor. They've never been through the academy. And
Yeah.
it's like, how are you going to help me with PTSD when you haven't done it yourself? So there are actually very few sports psychologists and consultants. I do consulting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that have actually played the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, oh, Damien Charlie says to tell you hello.
Damien, hey
Man,
buddy.
you got all kind of Commodores out here tonight for you,
Love
Jared.
these guys, man. I need to
Guys,
catch up.
I got Jared McGrath, one of the top 10 career rushing leaders in our program's history. He's out of Ocala, but now he lives this fantastical experience in Wyoming. And if you didn't see what he showed us, rewind the tape in a little bit and you'll be able to see where he's coming from. I haven't heard you declare that you're the king of Wyoming pickleball, but for today's purposes, we're crowning you the king
Bring it on.
of the
Yep.
court. I want to kind of transition a little bit to the modern athlete
Mhm.
and your approach. We played a generation ago or more, and today's athlete is not our experience hardly at all, other than the sport itself. There's so many things that tug at the modern athlete. We sure as heck didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones back in my day. It's easy to say, Jared, that life was simpler, but that's just too easy to say that. There are simple ways to approach life even today, but there's so many more pressures, I think, tugging at the modern college athlete. So here's my question or my topic to throw to you is how in the world do these athletes, particularly the ones that have a lot of social recognition, and I'm not just going to pick on Diego, our quarterback, but he's kind of our big name right now for many reasons.
Yep.
How does a kid like that balance everything, all the responsibilities that he's got, and still get his proper rest and nutrition and everything that he's supposed to do? How does the modern athlete pull that off?
Yeah, there's a lot of exposure, isn't there? I think we're seeing that. I mean, that's what I hear you saying. There's just a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of pressure, a lot of external pressure that happens. And, you know, things could be swept under the rug. I think in my day as well. I mean, I was one of six guys that got a cell phone in the locker room. That was it. That was in
Mhm.
the early 2000s.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so I think that as these athletes that have success, even the ones that are, that aren't your everyday household name athletes, I think the programs are building lots and lots of support around these guys
Mhm.
and gals too. Don't forget our women athletes too.
Absolutely.
They're building a lot of support. They're giving them resources. They're giving them lots of help and coaching, um, psychological coaching, emotional coaching, mental coaching, professional coaching, on the field and in the weight room. So they're giving a lot more resources. And when I went back to Vanderbilt several years ago, it had changed a ton. They were right in the middle of the big remodel at the Guggen Center.
Mhm.
I met Coach Lee, and it was yeah, there's a lot more amenities, a lot more. They're insulated a lot differently now than they were when I was there.
Oh, absolutely. Now we have the Ingram Center for Student Athlete
Yep.
Success, and they've got several
Right.
full-time personnel. And the programming, if you ever go to their website or if you ever see their social media, you can see all the programs that they have available. Now, you can't make them, I don't think, attend the classes or do whatever is available. I guess you just make it available to them. But I
Right.
certainly applaud what Vanderbilt's doing now to be able to set them up for success, not just during their time they're on campus, but for afterward. But my gosh, as much as branding has become important to these athletes, as much as the amount of followers and the NIL money that's just out there for a lot of them, it just you just got to hope that there's somebody keeping them ground. Oh, who we got there? Who's that big guy?
Well, this right here, this is Hank. It's my pup, and this is my son. This is my 18-year-old son. I'm on Facebook Live, buddy. It's my stud
Bud, how
wrestler
you
right
doing?
here. This is Jason. He's a junior up here at Star Valley High School. They have a amazing wrestling program, and he is
Excellent.
one of the varsity wrestlers. So
All right, and I know you got this. You're ingrained always with the right hand. There you go. Anchor down. But you know what? While you're here, maybe you can help answer this question a little bit. We're
All right.
talking about the modern athlete and social media and all the things that go along with what's expected of you. How do you stay grounded other than having an awesome dad? How do you keep your priorities? Because that's not easy because you got so many things tugging at you these days.
Well, I see my potential and I want to become what I can become. And I cut out the things that will limit me from becoming that.
That's pretty mature right there. You're not reading off the cue card, I take it.
he's
Nope.
not. We call that drag in my house.
Mm,
We call that drag. We cut the
yeah.
drag. We don't want the drag. We want to
Well,
eliminate the drag and execute to our full potential. So good
I don't know
job.
if you're I don't know if you're 18 yet, but that speaks volumes for your maturity at this point. So I wish you nothing but success and onward and upward with your career.
Thank you.
This is my buddy right here. I love this kid.
Now, when y'all play pickleball, does it get physical? Does dad let you win?
Have I let you win?
We've never played.
Yes, yes, we have. We played 2 weeks ago.
No, we haven't.
You didn't
Oh,
play.
I know who won those games. So
I had a bunch of people
you
out
got a
here.
ways to go, my friend.
We were having a tournament out here a couple weeks ago. I thought you were there. Nope.
Nope.
It wasn't recorded, so there's no evidence.
There's no evidence. Yeah.
Well, Jared, we've got a few more minutes, but I want to talk about how, if you're on the Vanderbilt campus these days, and there's so much electricity with the way the season is going, with new amenities and facilities that are being built, the way Coach Lee's got this program headed in such a great direction. If you get the team in front of you, how do you, how, and maybe this is unfair of me, but here's the question. How are you keeping their heads grounded and their feet grounded given the 5-2 start, which we all know could go south in a hurry, but we're not going to let it? How do you keep those guys? Hey, you can't rest on the first 7 games. We got the gauntlet of the next 5 SEC games. What are you telling those guys?
You're making, so you're keeping things in bite-sized chunks. That's it. It's everything is measurable. It's like, we're going to focus on practice today, and we're going to have a great practice. And then we're going to go to the next thing, and you're going to go to school, right? And you're going to excel in the classroom. You're going to come back, and you're going to go to weights, and you're going to, so what you do is I call it, when I work with some of the athletes, I say, what's the next right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have I had that discussion with you?
Plenty times.
Plenty of times. It's like, how do you know what to do when you're having success? How do you know what to do when you're having struggles? It's the next right thing. So I'll ask them, what's the next right thing to do, guys? Well, you buckle down and you show up on time. And then you go to practice, and the next right thing is to have a great practice. And then the next right thing might be you go to bed early, right? You go to bed, you get your sleep, you get your nutrition, and you wake up and you go to class. So you're breaking it down into small chunks, and you're not really making it a big thing they have to accomplish, because that's overwhelming for some of them. And that's you're setting people up to have some losses there. So you just make it in small chunks. Yeah.
I guess that also may help, and this is a question, it's a poorly worded question, that may help with anxiety of being an athlete. Instead of feeling like I'm drinking from a fire hose,
Yep.
is that another technique, that the way you're talking about taking it in small chunks to build on that success that you've already accomplished?
It is. There's lots of little techniques you can do to limit anxiety. That's just one of them. Is a lot of times what I hear is athletes, I don't know what to do next. What do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
I say the next right thing. What's the next right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't tell them, I don't give people their answers. I just ask them questions, right?
Sure.
And that next right thing it might be, man, I might need to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I really might need to just go work on a paper. Or I
Mm-hmm.
really,
Thing is, what do you do when they don't know what the next right thing is?
well, then we figure that out together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with Jason, wrestling, he doesn't sometimes know what that next right. And I ask him questions,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to the bottom of it, and we find out, and we put the schedule together, and we map things out, and we go right through it. And so, yeah, you're just making things a little, you're taking all the pressure out of things is what you want to do. You don't want to add pressure where pressure isn't needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Let me ask you a dad to dad question, and Jason, you can tell me if he's telling the truth.
All right.
My 2 daughters played sports. I had one of the daughters that she played lacrosse in college, but I learned when they were in junior high that when it was time to leave the field and go home, I learned very quickly that is not the time to rehash the game that they just played.
Yep.
At what point, Jason, did your dad learn that it's not the time immediately after the competition to rehash what he had just seen and you had just performed?
Well, for me, it's like really close. Well, after my wrestling match, if I lose or if I win, whatever, I need a breather. I need to like get my mind like off of like needing air and oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm like ready and I'm taking a breather, then I like to hear what I need to do to get better.
And so I phrase it with a question. So I'm going to ask him if he knows the question. Say he lost, right? Or he won, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I ask him a question every single time. I say, what's the question I ask you after your match?
What did you learn?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you learn? What'd you learn from your victory? What'd you learn from your loss? And so he'll tell me what he learned. And I say, all right, apply that lesson next time and get better and keep improving. That's the question I ask every time. What did you learn?
Yeah, what did you learn? Usually I had to wait until my daughter had a little food in her and she could refocus. But I learned quickly just as a dad, because I didn't coach her in the sport. I never played it. So I have no credibility other than just being from a, enthusiastic dad.
We just love them. That's it. We just love
Right.
them. Love them in their struggles, love them in their successes and their joys and their sorrows. Just love them. That's all they want. And when they look back, and what I want for my kids is when they look back on their life, I want them to say, "My dad loved me. He
Mhm.
cared about me. He showed up. He was there." That's what I care about.
Jason, do you understand? And this is, I know you and I have never met, and your dad did not ask me to ask you this. Do you realize what a stud he was as a running back at Vanderbilt? Do you realize he's still in the top 10 career rushing leaders? Do you realize that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you better give him his props sometimes instead of giving him a hard time. But I want to ask you this, Jared. We all have, I mentioned earlier about our group text with our teammates, with our friends. You know, I've been out since 1990, 34 years. I chat with these guys all the time, whether I see them in person or in group texts. And that, for me, is my best memory, is my best experience, is the camaraderie of teammates. Not the wins and the losses, but the wars we've gone through.
Yep.
What about your experience? I shouldn't have shared mine, but what about your experience? Is it anything like that?
It is. And I want to invite all the guys that are on, that I haven't talked to in decades or years. Let's be better friends. Let's reach out. We don't know what each other goes through. We don't know what we're all struggling with in life. The challenges that we've had, whether, people are battling cancer or people are going through divorces and need their buddies. Like, we don't know that. And as men, we typically hold this back and we hold it inside of ourselves, and we don't need to. And it can cause a lot of damage and harm. I tell you what, I would love more than anything for any of my teammates, even not a teammate. I don't care if you're a teammate of mine or not, but especially my teammates, since this is Vanderbilt focused, call me, man. I want to be friends with everybody and reconnect and rejoin. That's all that matters to me, is going forward.
Well, that's been one of the beautiful things for almost 5 years in this Facebook group that has now grown to almost 500 former players, coaches, cheerleaders, trainers, administrators.
Mm.
That's the beautiful thing about this community, Jared, is how much everybody is getting to know others from other decades and generations, but sharing common thoughts. So I would encourage you to get a little active in there as
Yep,
well.
I will.
I hate that we've come to such a quick hour that we've been on. I could keep you for the next three, but I'm not going to do that to you or Jason. But I do want to leave you with this, to share that the impact that going to Vanderbilt and playing ball and graduating and now sharing your experience. What was the, I guess, what's the biggest impact that Vanderbilt itself or the experience itself has had on your life?
I grew up really fast. It caused me to grow up. I left home.
Mhm.
Um, I grew up quick. Needing to, just the gravity of understanding what it was like to be to be a starter in the SEC.
Mhm.
So I just emotionally and physically and spiritually, I grew up pretty quick. I'd never left home before. That was my first time away. A lot of times it is for us as athletes. It's the first time we leave home for good.
Yeah.
And so I am one of the big takeaways is I loved my time at Vanderbilt. I really did. It helped me think better, think deeper. Even going through and getting a master's and a doctorate degree, um, I was automatically accepted because I went to Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
I didn't have to do any prerequisites, any additional courses. They saw the top 10 education that I got and I earned from Vanderbilt, and they unconditionally accepted me right away. So that's all the little things. But I am so grateful for my time at Vandy and for the people. There's a lot of people had major impact on me, and I'm not going to begin to say names because I'll forget somebody, but you know who you are if you had impact on me and we crossed paths, for good or for worse. I had some big bump ins with people along the way because I had a temper back in the day, still do sometimes. But it's all in the name of competing and winning, right? So
Jared, I can't thank you enough, bud. This has
yeah.
been an enlightening conversation. I love having these conversations each week, just getting to know fellow Commodores, learning their journeys and their impact on society. And I applaud what you've done and what you continue to do for so many.
Yeah, I want to add a plug to something just as I have a ping in my life to say this. So part of what I do sports performance coaching. I'm a consultant in a firm. I do business consulting. I'm a partner in a firm out of Salt Lake. I'm also a facilitator. I'm an owner of a personal development program. So if anybody's stuck in life, or you know people that need just to find out who they are, what their vision for their life is, what their purpose is for their life, just move through any type of negative, thought patterns that they have or struggles they have in life, mindset work. I do a training for that, and I do it 5 times a year. And so it's out in Salt Lake City because I can drive to Salt Lake from here. I have a partner that I do that with. But I just want to throw that invitation out there because there's a lot of good that we can do. We've had several professional athletes come through it who have retired, and they've had amazing experiences. So I'd love to have friends, family, anybody that feels like they need a good kick in the ass. Please come out and get that.
No, thank you for sharing that. And offline, I want you to send me the information so I can share it out to the group. Now, I'm starting to make Thanksgiving plans. I know you sleep 30. How many beds right now are currently called for? Because I have a large contingent of family members that may be showing up on your door Wednesday night of Thanksgiving.
Just
Jared,
call me. Come on through. I love my people. Yep.
awesome, guys. A couple of closing notes. About 2 weeks ago, we lost a member of the 1955 Gator Bowl team, a contributor to our group, and a dear friend to the program, Eric Sosby out of Tullahoma. He just led an interesting life. Go watch his conversation with me from a few years ago. The Big Swede, such an interesting man. Sorry that he's gone. We got the Texas game this weekend. There's going to be a ton of football alums on campus. It's going to be, I hate to sound like an old guy, but I'm going to copy what Diego said. Campus, I'm not going to use the F word, is going to be turned this weekend. Maybe we can snag a victory from the Longhorns. I'm sure and that would make us bowl eligible. And boy, Coach Lee has done just a bang up job, and there's so much momentum going on. So I hope to see you guys either there or I'll be at Auburn the following week. If you guys can just get to campus, make one game, it just helps out so much because trust me when I say this, the guys on the current team, they know when you're there. They know when the alums are there. They see it, they hear it, the coaches tell them. A lot of you have communication with some of the guys on the team. That means a lot. Showing up is 90% of it. So please, if you can, show up. Guys, keep coming back. We got more conversations coming up the upcoming weeks. And as always, anchor down.
Anchor down.